Picture this moment right now. You wake up, same routine as yesterday. Coffee, phone in hand, before your eyes fully open. A dozen notifications pull you in. You tell yourself, I'll get to the important stuff later. Work piles up, but it's the busy kind that feels urgent but changes nothing. Conversations stay surface level. Dreams you once had sit quietly in the background, waiting for when things slow down. Then one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you look in the mirror and feel it, that cold twist in your stomach. Time didn't wait. Years vanished while you were busy managing distractions. The frustration hits hard, not because life is unfair, but because you realize you traded irreplaceable days for things that fade. The fear creeps in. What if this is all there is? What if I reach the end and see I never really started? This isn't imagination. It's math. It's biology. It's the quiet truth staring back at every one of us. Most people have far fewer tomorrows than they assume. Today we stop pretending otherwise. We look straight at the numbers, at the Stoic wisdom that has faced this reality for centuries, and we use it, not to despair, but to ignite purposeful action. Because accepting how limited time is doesn't weaken you. It finally frees you to live. If that truth resonates, even a little, hit the like button now. It helps this message reach others who need the reminder. And subscribe with notifications turned on. These videos are here to keep waking us up, week after week. Number 1. The numbers don't lie. Recent data shows global average life expectancy hovering around 73 to 74 years, with places like the United States now reaching about 79 years in the latest reports from 2024 to 2025. Let's use a conservative but realistic figure. Say 80 years for someone in good health today. That equals roughly 4,160 weeks. Not an ocean of time, not endless summers. Just about 4,160 individual weeks. Each one exactly 7 days long. No more, no less. 1 week passes whether you fill it with meaning or let it dissolve into routine. If you're 25, you've already spent over 1,300 of those weeks. If you're 35, closer to 1,800. If you're 45, more than half your stack may be gone. These aren't cold statistics pulled from thin air. They represent real heartbeats, real sunrises, real chances to become better, to love deeper, to create something lasting. Yet most of us treat them like they're infinite. We defer growth. We postpone hard conversations. We say next year as though next year is promised. Seneca cut through this illusion 2,000 years ago. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. He saw people chasing wealth, status, endless pleasures, as if accumulating more would buy more time. But time isn't for sale. Every hour spent in anger, envy, or mindless escape is an hour permanently removed from your limited total. Think of your remaining weeks as sand in an hourglass, one you've never seen the full size of until it's too late. Grains fall steadily, relentlessly. You cannot pause the flow. You cannot borrow from tomorrow. The only power you have is deciding how each grain lands, scattered in distraction or directed toward virtue, relationships, mastery. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that the present is the only arena where life actually occurs. Practical exercise to make this real: take a piece of paper, draw a grid of 80 rows, 4 years, and 52 columns, 4 weeks in a year. Shade in every week you've already lived. Stare at it. See how the unshaded part shrinks. This isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to awaken you. When that visual hits, procrastination loses its appeal. Why scroll for another hour when that hour is one of only a few thousand left? The statistical check is merciless but merciful at the same time. Time is finite and non-renewable. Face it without flinching. Accept it fully. Then choose differently. Because the hourglass keeps running, with your attention or without it. Number 2. Death hangs over you. Memento Mori. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private notes, "Do not act as if you're going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. He wasn't being dramatic. He was being precise. Death doesn't announce its schedule. It can arrive in a heartbeat, a diagnosis, an accident. Every morning you open your eyes is grace, not guarantee. We spend so much energy fearing the end itself, but the deeper pain is realizing we never truly began. The Stoic practice of Memento Mori, remember you must die, isn't about gloom. It's about clarity. When death feels close, the trivial evaporates. Arguments over small offenses seem foolish. Chasing likes or status feels empty. What remains are the things that endure. Character built through discipline, kindness given freely, work done with integrity. Seneca expanded on this. You live as if you were destined to live forever. No thought of your frailty ever enters your head. Of how much time has already gone by, you take no heed. You squander time as though you drew from a full and abundant supply, though that day which you devote to someone or something is perhaps your last. He watched people waste decades on busyness that produced nothing lasting, then panic when the end neared. The antidote: treat every day as potentially final. Imagine your own deathbed, not in fear, but in honest reflection. What will sting most? Not the years you didn't have, but the ones you had and didn't use. The books unread, the forgiveness withheld, the risks avoided, the love unspoken. Let that imagined regret speak to you now. Let guide today's choices. Speak the truth today. Mend a relationship today. Start the project today. This awareness doesn't paralyze, it liberates. When you accept mortality calmly, you stop postponing virtue. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You act because waiting is the real risk. Marcus Aurelius said, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. Pretend the first half is complete. The remainder is your chance to rewrite the story." In the end, death levels every empire, every fortune, every accomplishment. What survives is how you met each moment, whether with patience, courage, justice, self-mastery. Guard the present fiercely. Fill it with what matters. Because when the curtain falls, it won't measure your lifespan. It will measure your use of it. Number 3, the present is all you own. Marcus Aurelius observed, the longest and shortest lives lose exactly the same thing, the present. Whether you live 40 years or 90, only this instant is truly yours. Yesterday is memory, already slipping. Tomorrow is imagination, not here yet. The present is the narrow gate through which all experience passes. Yet we spend a half absent, regretting what was, worrying what might be. Seneca warned, life is very short and anxious for those who forget the past, neglect the present, and fear the future. We build elaborate plans, endless to-do lists, future fantasies, as if planning substitutes for acting. But a plan is only paper until executed in the now. Distraction is the thief that steals the only real currency we possess. Examine a typical day. How many hours vanish in autopilot? Mindless feeds, compulsive checking, escaping discomfort through entertainment. These aren't harmless. They're theft from your finite store. Reclaim the moment by asking one question repeatedly. Right now, what is within my control? My attention, my effort, my judgment, nothing else. A daily Stoic habit. Evening review. Sit quietly. Ask, what did I do today that aligned with wisdom, courage, justice, temperance? What did I waste? No self-flagellation, just clear seeing. Over weeks and months, this practice shrinks unconscious drift. You begin to notice leaks the moment they start. The present, though brief, holds infinite depth. 1 hour of focused attention can reshape your character. One deliberate choice can heal a wound. One resisted impulse can build unbreakable discipline. These small acts compound quietly into a life of substance. When you root yourself firmly in the now, time paradoxically feels more abundant. Not because days lengthen, but because each one gains weight, texture, meaning. You stop running out of time because you stop throwing it away. Live here, decide here, act here. This breath, this heartbeat, is where your entire life is actually happening. Number 4. Practical ways to reclaim time. Seneca declared, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." The problem isn't lack of time, it's misuse. The solution? Identify the drains and seal them. Audit where your weeks go. Endless entertainment, people-pleasing, obligations that serve no real purpose. Cut without apology. Prioritize ruthlessly through Stoic filters. For every activity, ask, does this cultivate wisdom, build courage, practice justice, strengthen self-control? If the honest answer is no, question why it deserves your hours. Stoicism doesn't demand monastic withdrawal. It demands intentional selection. Do less, but do what lasts. Protect your attention like a fortress. Say no to requests that pull you from your path. Guard mornings for reflection, reading, exercise, deep work. These seed the rest of the day. Boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary to give your best to what truly matters. Family, craft, service. Incorporate regular Memento Mori reminders. A small skull on your desk. A weekly review of your life grid. A morning phrase. This could be my last day. How will I meet it? These aren't morbid. They're clarifying. When death feels near, excuses collapse. Someday becomes today. Forgiveness flows easier. Effort sharpens. Build supporting rituals. Start days with 5 minutes contemplating mortality. End with gratitude for the day given. Track weekly wins, not in productivity hacks, but in virtue lived. Over time, these habits rewire how you value moments. You stop trading hours for dopamine hits and start investing them in growth. Ultimately, time used well feels richer and longer. A single day of purpose, marked by honest work, genuine connection, inner discipline, outweighs weeks of drift. Reclaim your time not by adding more hours, impossible, but by infusing the ones you have with what endures. Character forged, love expressed, contribution made. Number 5. Living properly now. Marcus Aurelius urged himself, think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. Imagine the first chapters are written, some good, some flawed. The pages ahead are blank. No more hiding behind past mistakes or future promises. The responsibility is yours alone, starting now. Practice the 4 virtues daily, in small ways that compound. Justice in how you treat the cashier, the colleague, the stranger. Courage in facing discomfort instead of avoiding it. Wisdom in questioning impulses before acting. Temperance in pleasures that tempt excess. These aren't grand gestures. They're quiet choices that shape who you become. Accept what lies beyond control. The exact number of weeks remaining, other people's choices, sudden turns of fate. Freedom lives only in your response. In that narrow space, your judgments, your will, you are sovereign. Peace comes from focusing there, not on what cannot be changed. You are running out of time. Embrace that fact as liberation, not a burden. It strips away illusions. It sharpens priorities. It infuses ordinary moments with urgency and calm at once. No more half-living. No more waiting. Your weeks are numbered. Make each one count. Begin right where you sit. In this breath. In this decision. Because this moment, this fragile, unrepeatable now, is the only place life ever truly unfolds. Number 6. The illusion of tomorrow. We live as if tomorrow is an endless bank account we can draw from whenever we please. We say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll change when things calm down. I'll tell them I love them later. Yet tomorrow is not a promise. It is a probability that shrinks with every sunrise. The Stoics saw this clearly. Most suffering comes not from what happens, but from what we postpone until it is too late. Seneca wrote, how much time has been stolen from you by trifling matters? How much by vain regrets? How much by foolish joys? How much by greedy desires? How much by sleep and laziness? He observed people spending their prime years chasing shadows, wealth they never enjoy, approval they never fully receive, while the real work of living well sits untouched. The illusion of tomorrow lets us avoid the discomfort of real change today. Every later is a quiet betrayal of the present moment. When you delay a difficult conversation, you lose the chance to heal or grow closer. When you put off the hard work, you delay becoming the person you could be. The Stoic response is radical simplicity. If it matters, do it now. Not because life is short, but because the only life you control is this one. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by treating each day as if it were his last. He asked himself, if this were my final day, would I spend it in anger, distraction, or avoidance? The answer was almost always no. So he chose differently. He chose presence, duty, virtue. You can do the same. Stop waiting for permission or perfect conditions. The conditions will never be perfect. Only your decision can make them sufficient. Practical step: make a no tomorrow list. Write down 3 things you've been postponing: a call, a habit, a confession. Commit to doing at least one today, no matter how small the step. Feel the resistance rise, then act through it. This single act breaks the spell of tomorrow and returns power to the now. The illusion of tomorrow is comforting until it isn't. When the end arrives, no one regrets the things they did. They regret the things they didn't do while they still could. Shatter the illusion today. Live as if this is the only day that counts, because it truly is. Number 7, the trap of busyness. We fill our days with endless activity, meetings, notifications, errands, scrolling, yet feel emptier than ever. Busyness has become the modern excuse for not living. We tell ourselves we're productive, but deep down we know we're running from stillness, from reflection, from the truth that time is slipping away unused. Seneca called this out directly. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. We guard money, possessions, reputation, yet throw away hours as if they were infinite. Busyness is the thief disguised as purpose. The Stoic antidote is ruthless clarity. Ask of every task, is this necessary? Does it serve virtue? Will it matter in a year, or even a month? Most activities fail this test. When you strip away the non-essential, space opens for what truly matters. Deep work, meaningful relationships, inner growth, quiet contemplation. Marcus Aurelius warned himself against the busy idleness of court life, endless duties that produced no real good. He chose to focus on what he could control, his own mind and actions. You must do the same. Protect your time like a sacred trust. Say no to distractions that others call urgent, but you know are trivial. Practical exercise. Conduct a time audit for one full day. Track every 30-minute block. At the end, categorize. Meaningful, necessary, wasteful. Be honest, no excuses. The next day, cut at least one wasteful block and replace it with something that builds character or connection. Repeat daily. Over time, your life becomes intentional instead of reactive. Busyness feels like progress until you look back and see how little ground you've covered. Stop running in place. Choose depth over noise. Because when the days run out, no one will praise how busy you were. They will remember how well you lived. Number 8. Regret is the real enemy. Hospice workers and researchers who study the dying report the same regrets over and over. I wish I had lived more true to myself. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had expressed my feelings more. I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. I wish I had let myself be happier. Notice what is missing. No one says, I wish I had more money. I wish I had more followers. I wish I had been busier. The Stoics knew this long before modern studies. Seneca wrote, the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. The life we receive is not short, but we make it so. Regret arises not from a short life, but from a shallow one, from trading depth for distraction, courage for comfort, love for safety. Marcus Aurelius reflected daily on death to avoid this trap. He reminded himself that every action should be worthy of a rational being, because regret is the tax paid by those who live unconsciously. When you live with the end in mind, you stop collecting small regrets that compound into unbearable sorrow. Imagine yourself at the end. Look back without flinching. What will hurt most? The moments you didn't seize? The words you didn't speak? The risks you didn't take? Let that vision guide you now. Forgive today. Love today. Create today. Act with the courage you will wish you had shown. Practical step. Write your own future regret letter from the perspective of your older self looking back. Be brutally honest. Then turn each regret into a present action. Read it weekly. Let it burn away excuses and fear. The dying don't regret what they did. They regret what they failed to do while they still had time. Don't join them. Live so that when your time comes, you can look back and say, I used it well. I lived fully. I left nothing important unsaid or undone. Number 9. Compound interest of small daily choices. Time compounds just like money. Small daily choices, seemingly insignificant, accumulate into a life of depth or a life of emptiness. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Virtue is not a grand gesture, but the steady practice of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, day after day. Seneca said, as the yield of the vine is gathered in autumn, so the fruits of a well-spent life are gathered in old age. A life well spent is not measured by years, but by the quality of moments invested in what lasts. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, honesty over convenience, kindness over anger, you deposit into a bank that pays the highest interest, inner peace, and a legacy of character. Marcus Aurelius lived this principle in the chaos of empire. He didn't wait for ideal conditions. He practiced virtue in every interaction, every challenge. He knew that small daily acts of self-mastery compound into unbreakable resilience. You could do the same. Start small. Stay consistent. Practical daily framework. Choose one virtue to focus on each day. Monday, justice, fairness in every interaction. Tuesday, courage, face one fear. Wednesday, wisdom, reflect deeply. Thursday, temperance, practice moderation. Repeat and build. Track your streaks. Watch how consistency transforms you. The beautiful truth. Even if your life ends tomorrow, the compound interest of today's choices has already made it meaningful. You don't need more time. You need better use of the time you have. Stack small wins. Let them grow. In the end, you will not be remembered for how long you lived, but for how deeply. Number 10. Freedom through acceptance. True freedom begins when you accept the hardest truth. Your time is limited. Your control is narrow. Your life will end. Paradoxically, this acceptance does not crush you. It liberates you. The Stoics called it Amor, Fati, love of fate. Love your limits. Love the fact that time is short, because only then can you stop fighting reality and start living fully within it. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." The bravest act is accepting mortality without despair. When you stop pretending you have forever, you stop wasting what you do have. Fear loses its grip. Distractions lose their appeal. What remains is pure, focused living. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Acceptance is not resignation. It is wholehearted engagement with what is, while doing your duty within it. When you embrace finitude, priorities become crystal clear. You forgive faster. You love deeper. You act with urgency yet calm. You stop chasing things that death will strip away, wealth, status, approval, and start cherishing what death cannot touch: your character, your relationships, your integrity. Practical practice. Begin and end each day with the phrase, "This is not forever." Use it well. Let it sink in. Feel the quiet freedom it brings. Then go into your day not as a man running out of time in panic, but as one who knows the value of every breath and chooses to spend it wisely. In the end, the only freedom we truly possess is the freedom to choose how we meet each moment. Accept that your time is short. Love that truth. Then live so fiercely, so virtuously, so presently that when the end comes, you greet it as an old friend, not with regret but with peace. You now carry the numbers in your chest. roughly 4,000 weeks total, perhaps half, or far less, still ahead. You have faced the mirror of Memento Mori, seen through the illusions of tomorrow and busyness, felt the weight of future regret, and understood how small daily choices compound into a life of depth or one of quiet emptiness. This is not a morbid tally. It is liberation. The moment you stop pretending time is infinite, every remaining breath becomes precious currency. You are no longer a spectator watching days slip by. You become the deliberate steward of whatever portion remains. That shift alone is the greatest gift Stoicism can give. Not more years, but more life inside the years you have. So take what is left and live it properly, as Marcus Aurelius commanded himself on the edge of every dawn. Practice the virtues today, not as distant ideals, but as immediate actions. Speak the truth you've withheld. Forgive before the sun sets. Choose courage over comfort in the small moment right in front of you. Protect your attention from the 1,000 trivial thieves that promise distraction but deliver only regret. Build a habit of evening review so tomorrow wakes up wiser than today. Love the people fate has placed beside you with your whole heart while they are still here to receive it. Accept that the end will come, perhaps soon, perhaps later, but refuse to let it find you still postponing what matters most. You are running out of time, and so am I, and so is everyone watching this. Let that truth not paralyze you, but set you free. Start this very hour, not with grand gestures, but with one honest, intentional choice. Then another, and another, because in the end, no one will ask how many weeks you were given. They will only see how fully you used the ones you had. Live them well. Live them now. Memento Mori. Virtue is eternal. Thank you for letting this reminder sit with you today.